The morning sun shone through the crystal dome that covered New Geneva, casting rainbow patterns on the white marble streets below. Sarah Martinez walked slowly along the perfect pathway, her footsteps making no sound on the smooth surface. Everything was clean. Everything was safe. Everything was exactly as it should be. She stopped at her favorite cafe and ordered her usual breakfast. The AI server smiled at her with its gentle, programmed face. "Good morning, Sarah. Your nutritional analysis shows you need more protein today. May I suggest the enhanced eggs?" Sarah nodded and took her meal to a table by the window. Outside, she could see the other domes that dotted the landscape, each one home to 1,000,000 humans living in perfect harmony. No crime, no poverty, no disease, no problems at all. But as she ate her perfectly balanced breakfast, Sarah felt that strange emptiness in her chest again. The same feeling she had been having for months now. Something was missing, but she could not name what it was. 3,000 light years away, Ambassador Kethvar stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, reviewing the monthly reports on Earth. The tall, blue-skinned Zenthari felt proud as he read the numbers. Human life expectancy had increased by 30 years since contact. Their crime rate was 0. Their happiness index showed steady improvement. "Excellent work, Ambassador," said Counselor Veltar, floating beside him in her energy field, the harmonic being glowed with satisfaction. "The humans are our greatest success story. They have embraced peace completely." Kethavar nodded, his 4 eyes scanning the data streams. Indeed, they no longer fight wars. They no longer destroy their environment. They have transcended their primitive nature. "And their art?" asked another counselor, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. "Beautiful and serene," Kethvar replied. "Their music soothes the soul. Their paintings show perfect harmony. They have moved beyond the crude expressions of their violent past." But as he spoke, a small flag appeared on his data screen. A request from Earth. He opened it and frowned slightly. "What is it?" Feltar asked. "Some humans are asking for access to their historical archives. They want to study something called mountain climbing and deep-sea exploration." Strange requests. Feltar's glow dimmed slightly. "Primitive desires returning to the surface. This is normal. All species experience this during the transition period. Deny the request and offer them more cultural activities instead." Kethvar marked the request as denied and moved on to the next report. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Torres sat in his study, surrounded by books that most humans had forgotten existed. Ancient texts about exploration, adventure, and human achievement from before the council arrived. He had been collecting these forbidden materials for years, hiding them from the monitoring systems. His friend James knocked on the door. "Marcus, are you still reading those old books?" Marcus looked up, his eyes bright with something that had been missing from human faces for decades. "James, do you know what we used to do before the council came?" James sat down, looking uncomfortable. "We fought wars. We destroyed things. We were violent and dangerous. Yes, but we also climbed the highest mountains on Earth just to see what was at the top. We dove to the deepest parts of the ocean to explore. We sent rockets to other planets even though we might die trying." Marcus held up an old photograph. "Look at this. This is a picture of the first humans to reach the top of Mount Everest. Look at their faces." James studied the black and white image. The 2 men in the photo looked tired and cold, but their eyes held something he had never seen in any human face in his lifetime. Joy. Real, deep joy that came from achieving something difficult. "We were going to reach the stars ourselves," Marcus continued. "Did you know that? We were developing faster than light travel when the council arrived. We were so close. But why would we want to do dangerous things?" James asked. "We have everything we need now. We are safe. We are happy." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Are we really happy, James?" James wanted to say yes, but the word stuck in his throat. He thought about his own life. Perfect meals, perfect weather, perfect safety. Everything provided for him. Nothing to struggle against. Nothing to overcome. Nothing to achieve that he had not been given. "I don't know," he said finally. Meanwhile, in the medical district of New Geneva, Dr. Sarah Chen was reviewing some troubling data. As the city's chief psychologist, she had noticed patterns that worried her. Human creativity was declining. Birth rates were dropping. More and more people were reporting feelings of emptiness and purposelessness. She had started calling it the Great Malaise. Her patients described it as feeling like they were living in a beautiful dream, but longing to wake up. "Doctor, I don't understand what's wrong with me," said her patient, Maria. "I have everything anyone could want. A beautiful home, perfect health, no worries about money or safety. But I feel so empty," Sarah nodded. She had heard this same story dozens of times. "Tell me, Maria, what did you dream about last night?" Maria's eyes lit up slightly. "I dreamed I was sailing across a stormy ocean in an old wooden ship. The waves were huge and dangerous, and I was scared. But I was also alive, more alive than I have felt in years." Sarah made notes on her tablet. This was the third patient this week who had reported dreams of danger and adventure. Dreams that left them feeling more energized than their perfect waking lives. That evening, Sarah requested a meeting with the council representative. She was directed to a communication chamber where Kethavar's image appeared before her. "Dr. Chen," the ambassador said politely, "how may we assist you?" "Ambassador, I am seeing concerning patterns in human psychological health. We need to discuss allowing humans to face some challenges, to make meaningful choices even if those choices involve some risk." Kethavar's expression remained calm. "Doctor, you must understand that the Council has studied thousands of species. All go through adjustment periods before fully appreciating the gift of transcendence. The primitive mind craves danger because it does not yet understand that safety and peace are superior. But what if we need challenges to be truly human?" Sarah asked. "What if removing all risk and struggle is removing something essential from our nature?" "Doctor," Kethavar said gently, "we have guided 47 species to transcendence. None have regretted leaving their violent past behind. Trust in our wisdom. This feeling will pass." The communication ended, leaving Sarah alone in the chamber. But she was not convinced. That night she began her own research into the Council's previous success stories. In his study, Marcus Torres was meeting with a small group of friends who shared his interest in humanity's forgotten past. They called themselves the Exodus Project, though they had not yet decided what they were planning to exodus from. "We need to understand what we have lost," Marcus said to the group. "We need to remember who we were before we became this." "But is it worth risking what we have?" asked Elena, one of the younger members. "We live longer now. We are healthier. There is no war, no suffering." "There is also no growth," said Robert, an older man who still remembered the early days after contact. "We have become like beautiful flowers in a perfect garden, safe, protected, and slowly dying inside." The group talked late into the night, sharing stories and images from humanity's past. Stories of explorers who sailed unknown seas, inventors who failed 1,000 times before succeeding, athletes who pushed their bodies to the limit just to see what was possible. As they talked, something stirred in each of them. Something that had been sleeping for decades was beginning to wake up. In her apartment, Sarah Martinez lay in bed, staring at the perfect ceiling of her perfect room. She thought about her dreams lately. Dreams of running through forests, of climbing mountains, of facing storms and finding her way home. In her dreams, she was afraid sometimes. But she was also truly alive. Outside her window, the dome glowed softly, protecting her from any possible harm. But for the first time in her life, Sarah wondered what might be waiting beyond that protective barrier. Something was stirring in humanity. Something the Council had thought they had successfully eliminated. The desire to grow, to struggle, to become something more than what they were given. The gift of tranquility was beginning to feel like a cage. Dr. Sarah Chen spent 3 months studying human behavior patterns across all the dome cities on Earth. What she found troubled her deeply. The data showed that while humans were living longer and safer lives, something essential was dying inside them. She sat in her research lab, surrounded by charts and graphs that told a disturbing story. Human birth rates had dropped by 60% since contact. Creative output had fallen to nearly zero. Most concerning of all, a new condition was appearing that she had never seen before. People were simply losing the will to live, not from depression or illness, but from what she could only describe as spiritual starvation. Her research assistant, David, looked over her shoulder at the data. "This can't be right, Dr. Chen. Look at the happiness indexes. They show steady improvement." Sarah shook her head. "The happiness indexes measure comfort and contentment, not true fulfillment. Look at this data instead." She pointed to a different chart. "This measures human engagement with life. Problem-solving attempts, creative efforts, personal goal setting. All of these have dropped to almost nothing. But why would that matter if people are happy? David asked. Sarah pulled up an old video file from before contact. It showed humans working together to solve a crisis, their faces intense with focus and determination. Despite the obvious stress and danger, their eyes were bright and alive in a way that no human eyes looked anymore. "We are not the same species we were 50 years ago," Sarah said quietly. "We have become something else, something less." Meanwhile, in his secret study, Marcus Torres was making discoveries that would change everything. He had managed to access restricted council databases using old human hacking techniques that the aliens had never encountered. What he found made his blood run cold. "Robert, Elena, you need to see this," he called to his fellow Exodus Project members. They gathered around his hidden computer screen. "I found records of the council's previous elevation projects," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "We are not their first success story." On the screen appeared the files for species called the Vorthak and the Kelanites. Both had been elevated by the council centuries ago. Both had initially been classified as success stories. "Look at this," Marcus pointed to a timeline. "The Vorthak were elevated 300 years ago. For the first 50 years, their happiness indexes improved, just like ours. Crime disappeared. Wars ended. They were held up as a model for other species." Elena leaned closer to the screen. "What happened to them?" Marcus scrolled down to more recent data. 100 years after elevation, their population began to decline. Not from war or disease, but because they simply stopped having children. They stopped creating. They stopped caring about their future. "And now?" Robert asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "Extinct. The last Vorthak died 25 years ago. The council listed their transcendence as complete integration with universal harmony." The room fell silent. Elena was the first to speak. "The Kelanites?" Marcus pulled up another file. "Same pattern. Elevation, apparent success, slow decline, extinction. The council has done this to 47 species. We found records of 3 others who tried to resist the process. What happened to them? They were given a choice. Accept elevation or be quarantined as a danger to galactic peace." Marcus's hands shook slightly as he scrolled through the files. All 3 chose quarantine. All 3 were later classified as extinct due to inability to adapt to modern galactic standards. Robert stood up and began pacing. "So we have a choice. Slow death or quick death?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "We have a third choice. But it will require courage that our species has not shown for 50 years. While Marcus was uncovering the council's dark history, Dr. Sarah Chen was preparing to present her findings to the human population. She had requested broadcast time on all dome networks to share her research on the Great Malaise. She stood before the cameras in the Central Communications Center, knowing that millions of humans would see her message. Taking a deep breath, she began. "My fellow humans, I am Dr. Sarah Chen, and I have something important to share with you. For months, I have been studying patterns in our behavior and psychology since contact with the Galactic Council. What I have found suggests that we are facing a crisis that threatens our very survival as a species." She displayed her charts and data, explaining in simple terms how human creativity, drive, and engagement with life had steadily declined since they achieved perfect safety and comfort. "We are told we are happier than ever, but happiness without purpose is empty. We are told we are safer than ever, but safety without the freedom to take risks is a cage. We are told we have transcended our primitive nature. But what if our so-called primitive nature contained elements essential to being human?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Dr. Chen received thousands of messages from humans across Earth. Many described feelings they had been unable to name. The emptiness, the longing for something more, the dreams of danger and adventure that left them feeling more alive than their waking hours. But the council was also watching. Within a day, Dr. Chen received a polite but firm request to appear before Ambassador Kethvar. She stood in the communication chamber, facing the tall alien who had overseen humanity's elevation. His 4 eyes studied her with what she interpreted as disappointment. "Dr. Chen, your broadcast has caused unnecessary concern among your people. The council is disappointed that a human of your education would spread such harmful ideas. Ambassador, I shared scientific data about human psychological health." "How is that harmful?" Kethvar's expression remained calm but firm. "Doctor, you do not understand what you are asking for. Before the council arrived, humans killed each other in wars. They destroyed their planet's environment. They suffered from diseases and poverty. We have eliminated all of this suffering. Yes, but you have also eliminated our ability to grow, to struggle, to become more than we are, Sarah replied. Humans need challenges to thrive. We need the possibility of failure to make success meaningful. Doctor, this conversation troubles me greatly. You speak like the primitive humans we first encountered. Do you truly wish to return to an existence of violence and suffering? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I wish to return to an existence where humans have the freedom to choose their own path, even if that path includes risk and struggle. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Chen, the Council has guided 47 species to transcendence. We have studied the patterns of civilization for millennia. What you ask for is not growth. It is regression. And yet, Sarah said quietly, what happened to the Vorthok? What happened to the Kellenites? The alien's expression changed slightly. For the first time, Sarah saw something like uncertainty in his eyes. How do you know those names? He asked. Knowledge finds a way, Ambassador. Even in paradise, some of us still ask questions. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Sarah alone. But she was not afraid. For the first time in years, she felt truly awake. That same day, Marcus Torres called a meeting of the Exodus Project. But this time, they were not meeting in secret. Dr. Chen's broadcast had changed everything. Hundreds of humans had requested to join their group. They met in a large hall in New Geneva, filling it to capacity. Marcus stood before them, looking out at faces that showed something that had been missing for decades. Hope. Friends, he began, we have learned the truth about our situation. We are not the Council's greatest success. We are their latest victims. But unlike the 47 species that came before us, we still have a choice. He shared the data they had discovered about the extinct species, watching as the crowd absorbed the terrible truth. We propose something that no species has ever attempted. Marcus continued. We propose to leave paradise, to take our chances in the darkness between the stars rather than accept slow death in this golden cage. A woman in the front row stood up. Where would we go? The Council controls all habitable worlds. Marcus smiled for the first time in months. We will find our own worlds. We will terraform hostile planets. We will live in space stations. We will be dangerous and unpredictable and gloriously, magnificently human. The Council will try to stop us, called out another voice. Yes, Marcus agreed, but they cannot stop all of us. And more importantly, they cannot stop the idea. Once we prove it is possible to choose struggle over safety, other species will ask the same questions we are asking. The crowd began to murmur with excitement. Sarah Martinez, who had attended the meeting, felt that strange emptiness in her chest finally begin to fill. For the first time in her life, she was choosing something for herself. Something difficult and uncertain and therefore real. Dr. Chen, who had been invited to speak, stood up. The Council believes they know what is best for us. They may even believe they are acting from kindness. But kindness that removes choice is not kindness. It is control. The applause was thunderous. Across Earth's domes, similar meetings were beginning to take place. Humanity was waking up from its beautiful dream, and they were choosing to face the nightmare of uncertainty rather than accept the slow death of absolute safety. The Exodus Project was no longer just a small group of historians and dreamers. It was becoming a movement. And movements, as the Council would soon learn, were very difficult things to stop. The discovery that changed everything came by accident. Maria Santos, a data analyst who had joined the Exodus Project, was searching through Council archives for information about FTL technology when she stumbled upon something far more important. Marcus, you need to see this immediately, she called out, her voice shaking. Marcus Torres rushed to her workstation, where she had pulled up files that made his heart race. Records of formal requests from other species. Requests that looked exactly like the ones humans were now making. The Vorthak didn't just fade away quietly, Maria said, scrolling through translated documents. Look at this. 300 years ago, they sent formal requests to the Council, asking for the right to face challenges again. They wanted to explore dangerous worlds. They wanted to solve problems that mattered. Marcus read over her shoulder, his anger growing with each document. What did the Council say? The same things they are saying to us. that the species was going through an adjustment period, that primitive desires would fade with proper guidance, that safety and peace were superior to struggle and growth. But there was more. Maria had found records of Vorthak poetry and art from their final century. The work spoke of feeling trapped in golden cages, of dreams about their warrior past, of a deep spiritual hunger that no amount of comfort could satisfy. They knew they were dying, Marcus said quietly. They understood what was happening to them, and they begged the council to let them live again. And the Kellenites? Maria asked, though she seemed afraid to hear the answer. More files appeared on the screen. The same pattern, the same requests, the same denials. The Kellenites had even attempted to leave their paradise worlds on their own, building secret ships to explore the galaxy. The council had stopped them, explaining that exposure to the harsh realities of space would only cause unnecessary suffering. How many others? Marcus asked. Maria's search revealed the terrible scope of the council's kindness. 12 species had made formal requests to return to challenge and growth. 17 others had shown similar patterns of decline without making official requests. All had been guided toward what the council called transcendence, and what the humans were beginning to understand was extinction. We are not just fighting for our freedom, Marcus realized. We are fighting for the right of all species to choose their own destiny. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the human resistance network. Within days, similar findings were being made in secret research centers across Earth. The Exodus Project evolved from a group of nostalgic humans into something much more significant, the first species to fully understand the council's pattern and actively resist it. Dr. Sarah Chen was called before the council for a second time, but this meeting was different. Instead of just Ambassador Kethavar, she faced a full panel of council representatives from a dozen species. Their concern was obvious. Dr. Chen, spoke Counselor Veltar, her energy field pulsing with agitation. Your people have been accessing restricted information. This is extremely concerning behavior. Sarah stood straight, feeling the weight of her species' future on her shoulders. Counselor, we have discovered that you have eliminated 47 intelligent species under the guise of helping them. We call that genocide. The council chamber erupted in shocked responses from the alien representatives. Kethvar raised his hand for silence. Dr. Chen, you misunderstand our records. Those species achieved transcendence. They moved beyond the need for physical existence. They died, Sarah said bluntly. Their birth rates dropped to 0. Their creativity stopped. Their will to live disappeared. You didn't elevate them. You killed them slowly and called it kindness. A new voice joined the conversation. Counselor Thessara, a crystalline being whose species had been among the council's earliest successes, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. Dr. Chen, you speak of matters you cannot comprehend. We have guided civilization for 10,000 years. We have ended countless wars, eliminated suffering across the galaxy. You have also eliminated growth, challenge, and the freedom to choose, Sarah replied. A life without the possibility of failure is not a life. It is a slow death. The debate continued for hours. Sarah presented her research, showing how human creativity and birth rates were following the exact same pattern as the extinct species. The council countered with their own data, showing improvements in health, longevity, and contentment. Finally, Elder Morvain, the oldest member of the council, spoke. His ancient voice carried the weight of millennia. Young human, do you truly believe that struggle and suffering are preferable to peace and safety? Sarah thought of all the humans she had studied, all the dreams of adventure and challenge that haunted their perfect lives. Elder Morvain, I believe that choice is preferable to any outcome imposed by others, no matter how well-intentioned. The council session ended without resolution, but Sarah knew she had planted seeds of doubt. For the first time in their long history, the council was being forced to question their fundamental beliefs about civilization and progress. Meanwhile, the practical work of resistance was accelerating. Marcus Torres had gathered teams of engineers who were working to rebuild technologies that humanity had possessed before contact. Using a combination of old human ingenuity and carefully acquired council technology, they were making progress that surprised even themselves. In hidden facilities throughout Earth's asteroid belt, generation ships were taking shape. Not the sleek, safe vessels that the council favored, but sturdy, flexible craft designed to support human life in the harshest conditions imaginable. The beauty of these ships, explained Chief Engineer Lisa Park to a gathering of the Exodus Project leadership, is that they are designed for adaptation. We cannot predict what challenges we will face in deep space, so we have built ships that can be modified, rebuilt, and repaired using whatever resources we find. The ships were a perfect reflection of human nature as it had existed before contact. Practical, adaptable, and designed to thrive in uncertainty rather than hide from it. But the engineering challenges were nothing compared to the social ones. The human population was split almost evenly, between those who wanted to stay in paradise and those who wanted to risk everything for freedom. Dr. Chen found herself mediating between families, torn apart by the choice. In one session, she counseled a couple where the husband wanted to join the Exodus while the wife preferred to remain on Earth. I don't understand why you would give up everything good in our lives for uncertainty and danger, the wife Anna said to her husband Paul. Paul struggled to find words for feelings that had been suppressed for decades. Anna, when was the last time you felt truly proud of something you accomplished? When was the last time you overcame a real challenge? Anna was quiet for a long moment. We don't need to overcome challenges anymore. Everything is provided for us. And how does that make you feel? Dr. Chen asked gently. Anna's composure finally cracked. Empty, I feel empty, but at least I feel safe. Paul took his wife's hand. What if we could feel full again? What if we could feel alive? These conversations were happening in millions of homes across Earth. Families, friends, and communities were being forced to choose between the safety they knew and the uncertain freedom they had never experienced. The council, meanwhile, was struggling with its own divisions. Reports from their session with Dr. Chen had sparked heated debates throughout their governing body. Some members, particularly from species that had been elevated more recently, began asking uncomfortable questions about their own experiences. Young Counselor Zesik of the Thermic Collective made a shocking statement during one session. I have studied the records of my people's elevation. We too requested the right to return to our fire-dancing traditions. We were told these were primitive impulses that would fade. They never faded, we simply stopped expressing them. Similar revelations came from other council members. The Aquatic Brotherhood spoke of missing their dangerous deep-sea hunts. The Hive Worlds mentioned suppressed desires to explore and colonize new territories. For the first time in millennia, the council was being forced to confront the possibility that their definition of progress might be wrong. Ambassador Kethvar found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending policies he was beginning to doubt. In a private meeting with Elder Morvain, he expressed his concerns. Elder, what if the humans are right? What if we have been eliminating the very qualities that make each species unique and valuable? Elder Morvain's ancient eyes studied the younger ambassador. Kethvar, we have prevented countless wars, eliminated suffering across thousands of worlds. Surely some sacrifice of primitive impulses is acceptable for such benefits. But what if those impulses are not primitive? What if they are essential? The question hung in the air between them, unanswered and troubling. On Earth, the moment of decision was approaching. The generation ships were nearly complete. The human population had made its choice. 3 billion wanted to stay and work with the Council to find a new way, while 3 billion others were prepared to risk everything for the freedom to fail, to struggle, and to grow. Marcus Torres stood on the observation deck of the lead ship, looking out at Earth through the viewport. Soon, the day of departure dawned clear and bright across Earth's domes. For the first time in 50 years, humans were making a choice that their alien protectors strongly opposed. The weight of that decision showed on every face as families said goodbye, perhaps forever. Sarah Martinez stood in the departure terminal of Exodus Ship 7, holding her daughter's hand. Maria was only 8 years old, too young to fully understand why they were leaving paradise, but old enough to sense the importance of the moment. Mama, are we really going to live on a ship? Maria asked, looking up with eyes that sparkled with curiosity rather than fear. Sarah smiled, feeling something she had not experienced in years. Anticipation for an uncertain future. Yes, sweetheart. We are going to travel to new worlds and build new homes, and will it be dangerous? Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level. It might be, but we will face any dangers together, and we will grow stronger because of them. Across the terminal, Dr. Sarah Chen was making her final broadcast to Earth and the galaxy. Standing before cameras that would carry her words to thousands of worlds, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. To our human family staying on Earth, she began, we do not leave you in anger or disappointment. You have chosen your path just as we have chosen ours. We hope that together, we can prove that there are many ways to be human and all deserve respect. She paused, looking directly into the camera. To the Galactic Council, we thank you for the gifts you have given us. Longer life, freedom from disease, safety from want. These are precious things. But we have learned that a life without choice is not a life. It is merely existence. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. We do not reject your friendship. We reject only your control. In leaving your protection, we hope to discover what it truly means to be human. And perhaps in time, we can show the galaxy that strength comes not from avoiding challenges, but from facing them. The broadcast ended, and Dr. Chen joined the 3 billion humans who had chosen the path of uncertainty. In the council chambers, the debate had been raging for days. Ambassador Kethvar watched the departure preparations with growing alarm, while other council members argued about whether to allow the exodus or prevent it by force. We cannot permit this, declared Councillor Veltar, her energy field pulsing with agitation. If the humans leave and survive, other species will demand the same freedoms. It will undo 10,000 years of progress. And if we stop them by force, replied young Councillor Zesek, what does that make us? Are we protectors or prisoners' guards? Elder Morvain had been silent throughout the debate, but now he spoke with his ancient authority. The question before us is fundamental. Do we serve the galaxy or does the galaxy serve us? The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. We believed we were guiding species toward a higher form of existence, the elder continued, but perhaps we have been guiding them only toward what we thought they should become, rather than what they chose to become. Ambassador Kethvar stood up. Elder, if we allow the humans to leave and they die in the harsh spaces between stars, how is that better than the peaceful lives we offer them? Because, said a new voice from the back of the chamber, it will be their choice to make. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Councillor Thessara, the crystalline being whose species had been among the Council's earliest successes. Her voice chimed with new harmonies as she continued. I have been researching my own people's history since our last meeting with Dr. Chen. We too had requests denied. We too lost our desire to create, to explore, to grow. We called it maturity, but perhaps it was death. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council. If their oldest success story was questioning the elevation process, what did that mean for everything they had built? The debate might have continued for days, but it was interrupted by urgent reports from the human ships. The exodus was beginning whether the Council approved or not. Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the lead ship, New Horizon, as the massive vessel prepared to leave Earth's orbit. Around him, his crew worked with an efficiency and purpose that would have been impossible in their old lives. For the first time in decades, they had meaningful work to do. All ships report ready for departure, announced Navigation Officer Lisa Park. Marcus opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. 12 massive generation ships hung in space around him, each one carrying 250,000 humans and everything they would need to build new civilizations among the stars. People of the Exodus fleet, Marcus began, we are about to take a step that no species has taken for millennia. We are choosing uncertainty over safety, struggle over comfort, growth over stagnation. He looked out at Earth, beautiful and serene in its protective embrace of Council technology. We do not know what we will find among the stars. We may face dangers that will test us to our limits. We may fail, but we will fail as free beings making our own choices. The response from the fleet was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers echoed through the corridors of 12 ships as 3 billion humans prepared to reclaim their destiny. Fleet navigation, Marcus continued, plot a course for the Kepler 442 system. Long-range sensors show a marginally habitable world there. It will be harsh, dangerous, and perfect for testing what we are truly capable of. As the ships began to move, something unexpected happened. The Council ships that had been shadowing the human fleet did not move to intercept them. Instead, they simply watched as humanity chose exile over safety. On the Council flagship, Ambassador Kethvar received a direct order from Elder Morvain. Let them go, and let the galaxy see what happens when a species chooses its own path. The departure was broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every Council world and every elevated species. For the first time in 10,000 years, beings across the galaxy watched a species reject paradise in favor of uncertainty. The reactions were immediate and profound. On worlds throughout Council space, members of elevated species began asking questions that had been silent for centuries. Why were their birth rates declining? Why did their art lack passion? Why did they feel empty despite having everything they could want? Young members of the Thermic Collective began meeting in secret, discussing their suppressed desires to return to the fire-dancing traditions of their ancestors. Aquatic Brotherhood youth talked about the deep-sea hunts their grandparents had described in whispered stories. Most shocking of all, some species began making formal requests to the Council. They wanted to study the human exodus. They wanted to understand what it meant to choose struggle over safety. The Council found itself facing a crisis unlike any in their long history. The humans had not just chosen to leave. They had sparked a galaxy-wide awakening of desires that the Council thought they had successfully eliminated. Dr. Sarah Chen, now aboard the ship designated New Hope, began receiving communications from across the galaxy. Scientists, philosophers, and ordinary citizens from dozens of species wanted to understand what the humans had discovered. One message particularly moved her. It came from a young Vorthak, one of the last of her species still alive. Dr. Chen, the message read, "I have lived my entire life believing my people achieved transcendence through peaceful integration with universal harmony. But after seeing your broadcasts, I have been studying our real history. We did not transcend. We faded away because we lost the will to continue existing without purpose." The message continued, "I am the last Vorthak capable of bearing children. I had chosen not to reproduce because I saw no point in bringing new life into a universe without challenges to overcome. But watching your exodus has given me hope. If your species can choose struggle over safety, perhaps there is still a chance for mine." Similar messages arrived from members of species the Council had classified as extinct. Small populations had survived on remote worlds, forgotten by the galactic community. The human exodus had given them hope that they too might find a way to reclaim their lost vitality. As the Exodus fleet traveled toward their new home, they were not alone. Their communications with the galaxy continued, sharing their experiences and discoveries. They became teachers and inspirations for species that had forgotten what it meant to choose their own destiny. 3 months into their journey, the fleet encountered their first real challenge. A massive asteroid field blocked their path, requiring them to navigate through dangerous debris while making critical repairs to their ships. On Earth, Council observers watched nervously as humans faced exactly the kind of danger the Council had spent millennia protecting species from. Ships were damaged, people were injured. Some died, but something remarkable happened. Instead of falling apart, the human fleet grew stronger. They worked together with an intensity and creativity that their paradise existence had never demanded. They solved problems, adapted to challenges, and emerged from the asteroid field more capable than when they entered it. "Look at them," whispered Counselor Zesic as she watched the reports. "They are not just surviving the dangers, they are thriving because of them." Ambassador Kethvar found himself agreeing, though the admission troubled him deeply. They are becoming something we have never seen before. A species that grows stronger through adversity rather than weaker. The implications were staggering. If the humans were right, if challenge and struggle were essential, 50 years had passed since the Great Exodus, and the galaxy was unrecognizable from what it had been. Ambassador Kethvar, now showing his age despite his species' long lifespan, stood on the observation deck of a council ship approaching the human colony of New Kepler. The world before him should have been a frozen wasteland barely capable of supporting life. Instead, he saw a vibrant planet dotted with cities that seemed to grow organically from the harsh landscape. Orbital stations surrounded the world like mechanical moons, and ships moved constantly between them, carrying people and goods with an energy the galaxy had not seen for millennia. "Are you ready for this, Ambassador?" asked his aide, a young Xanthari who had been born after the human exodus. Kethvar nodded slowly. "I have been preparing for this meeting for 50 years, Velkar. Though I am not sure anyone could truly be ready to face the consequences of decisions made so long ago." The human colony they were visiting was one of 12 that the Exodus fleet had established across 3 star systems. Each world presented unique challenges, Extreme cold, toxic atmospheres, dangerous radiation, unstable geology. The kind of environments that the Council had always steered species away from, believing them too dangerous for civilized life. Yet humanity had not just survived on these worlds. They had thrived. As their shuttle descended toward New Kepler's primary spaceport, Kethvar marveled at what he saw. Children played in environmental suits in areas where the atmosphere was still too thin to breathe, laughing as they chased each other through ice formations that would kill most galactic species. Adults worked on massive terraforming projects, slowly transforming hostile worlds into homes through sheer determination and ingenuity. Most remarkably, they looked truly alive in a way that the ambassador had not seen since before the Council began its elevation programs. The shuttle landed, and Kethvar was greeted by Dr. Sarah Chen, now in her 90s but still vibrant with purpose. Her hair was white, and her face was lined with decades of real struggles and real achievements, making her more beautiful than any Council citizen who had lived twice as long in perfect safety. "Ambassador Kethvar," she said warmly, extending her hand in the ancient human gesture of greeting. "Welcome to New Kepler. I am honored that you have come to see what we have built." As they walked through the spaceport, Kethvar was struck by the controlled chaos around them. Humans moved with purpose and energy, solving problems, building things, creating solutions to challenges that arose daily. The contrast with the serene perfection of Council worlds was startling. "Dr. Chen," Kethvar said, "I must admit that what I see here challenges everything I believed about civilization and progress." Sarah smiled. "Ambassador, 50 years ago you told me that the Council had guided 47 species to transcendence. Now we know the truth. But rather than dwelling on past mistakes, we have chosen to focus on building a better future." They entered a transport that carried them toward the colonial capital, passing through districts that showed the remarkable adaptability of human civilization. Here, underground cities carved into solid rock. There, floating platforms that rose and fell with the planet's extreme weather patterns. Everywhere, solutions that no Council species would have attempted because they involved risk and uncertainty. "Tell me about the other colonies," Kethvar requested. Sarah activated a holographic display showing the 12 human worlds. Each colony has developed its own culture and approach to the challenges they face. New Vega specializes in high radiation environments and has developed technologies that make previously uninhabitable worlds accessible. Kepler Prime has become our center for deep space exploration and shipbuilding. The display showed ships unlike anything the Council had ever designed. Where Council vessels prioritized safety and comfort, human ships were built for adaptability and exploration. They were designed to be repaired, modified, and improved by their crews during long journeys into unknown space. "And the most remarkable colony," Sarah continued, "is New Terra, where we have been joined by refugees from species the Council classified as extinct." Kethvar's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "Refugees?" "The Vorthak, the Kellenites, and others. Small populations survived on remote worlds forgotten by galactic civilization. When they learned about our exodus, they asked to join us. Today, New Terra is home to representatives of 15 species that were thought to be gone forever." The transport arrived at the Colonial Government Center, and Kethvar was introduced to the human leadership. What struck him immediately was their diversity. These were not the serene, uniform citizens of Council worlds. They were individuals shaped by different challenges, different choices, different failures and successes. Marcus Torres, now bearing scars from 5 decades of frontier life, served as the colonial coordinator. His eyes held a brightness that Kethvar remembered from humanity's pre-contact days, but tempered with wisdom earned through experience. "Ambassador," Marcus said, "we understand that our exodus has caused significant changes throughout Council space. We want you to know that this was never our intention to destabilize galactic civilization. And yet," Kethvar replied carefully, "that is exactly what has happened." The changes had indeed been dramatic. Across Council space, species after species had demanded the right to choose their own paths. Some wanted to return to ancestral traditions that the Council had classified as primitive. Others wanted to explore dangerous regions of space or attempt challenging terraforming projects. The Council had initially resisted these demands, but the pressure had become impossible to ignore. Young members of elevated species were leaving their paradise worlds in increasing numbers, seeking out human colonies where they could experience the kind of meaningful challenges their homeworlds no longer offered. "We call it the Great Awakening," said Elena Vasquez, who had become the chief administrator for interspecies relations. "Across the galaxy, beings are remembering that existence and life are not the same thing." She shared reports from council worlds that painted a picture of unprecedented change. Birth rates were rising for the first time in centuries as species rediscovered the desire to create new generations. Art and music were experiencing a renaissance as creators found inspiration in uncertainty and challenge. Most significantly, the slow population decline that had affected every elevated species was reversing. The spiritual starvation that had been killing civilizations was being replaced by a hunger for growth and achievement. "The Council has established what you call the New Compact," Kethavar admitted. "Species are now permitted to choose their level of Council protection and guidance." "And how has that been received?" Dr. Chen asked. Kethavar's expression was complex. "Better than we expected, though it has required us to fundamentally reconsider our understanding of civilization itself. We discovered that many Council species had been suppressing desires similar to those expressed by humans. The Aquatic Brotherhood has returned to their deep-sea exploration traditions. The Thermic Collective has restored their fire-dancing ceremonies. And the results? Remarkable," Kethavar admitted. "Species that had been stagnating for millennia are experiencing cultural and scientific renaissances. The creativity and innovation emerging from these renewed civilizations far exceeds anything we achieved during the height of our elevation programs." During his week-long visit, Kethavar was given access to every aspect of human colonial life. He saw the medical centers where humans regularly risked their lives to save others in dangerous rescue operations. He visited the research stations where scientists pushed the boundaries of knowledge through experiments that could fail spectacularly. He watched children learning skills that included the possibility of injury, failure, and disappointment. Most remarkably, he attended a memorial service for colonists who had died in an industrial accident the previous month. Instead of grief and despair, he found humans celebrating the lives of those who had chosen to risk everything in pursuit of something greater than themselves. "Do you not fear death?" he asked Dr. Chen as they watched the ceremony. "Of course we do," she replied, "but we fear meaninglessness more. Those people died building something that will outlast them, something that will make life better for their children and grandchildren. That gives their deaths meaning in a way that simply existing for centuries in perfect safety never could." On his final day, Kethavar was taken to observe a dangerous operation where humans were attempting to redirect an asteroid that threatened one of their mining stations. The work was risky, requiring split-second timing and perfect coordination. Several things went wrong during the operation, and the humans had to improvise solutions in real time. A Council species would have evacuated the area and written off the station as an acceptable loss. The humans instead worked together to save both the station and the asteroid, turning a potential disaster into a triumph through courage, creativity, and determination. "This is what we lost," Kethavar said quietly to his aide. "This vitality, this willingness to struggle for something better. We thought we were saving species from suffering, but we were actually saving them from living." Thank you for watching and comment for next part.